this is a first-time statewide summit, I believe first time, if not the first time in a long time, that we've brought together the statewide ESL leadership of New Jersey's community colleges. And it reinforces something I'm sure each and every person in this room already knew coming here today. It reinforces that ESL matters, and ESL matters a whole lot. Feel free to applaud yourselves. You know, think about it. Our 19 community college presidents, and Dr. Donahue will introduce other presidents who are here. They meet monthly. They meet now about every 6 months in a retreat, and at one of the recent retreats, and you know, Pat will sketch the larger context for the student success conversation we're having, but those 19 presidents thought about it and thought about it in a serious way and thought about it some more and concluded ESL deserves its own separate conversation. I was walking with Chris Hudson. Where's Chris? And Hudson is an example. We were just chatting, and 20% of Hudson's enrollment in a given semester is ESL related. So we've got a great program for you. And Dr. Donahue is not only the host institution, and boy, what a great facility. You're in for a treat. Probably most of you have been here previously. But she's more than the host president. She is our go-to president on Big Idea 1. Have you heard about this Big Idea project? Maybe not by name, but it's our playful title for New Jersey Community College's student success effort. And Big Idea 1 is all about transforming developmental ed and addressing ESL programs at the same time. Pat, as busy as she is here at Mercer running this wonderful college, I'm Mercer County proud, and it's a great asset in our county here. But she has carved out time from her schedule to meet with Dwight Smith and other academic officers to lead this conversation about ESL, and we're so very grateful to her for her leadership role in that way, and for hosting us today. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Pat Donahue, President of Mercer County Community College.
Well, it is entirely my pleasure to welcome all of you to Mercer County Community College. I know for many of you it's welcome back if it's your first time. We do sit on 294 acres here. We have about 9,400 credit students in the fall, total unduplicated heads, about 13 to 14,000 every year. And we teach GED, we teach ABE. Both of those are housed at our Trenton campus and have been federally funded for years. And we teach ESL there and in a lot of new communities because the communities are asking for it. I know that's not anything new to those of you who work in it every day, but it continues to be a growing demand and a growing need. Several years ago, I've sort of lost count of the number. The community college trustees and presidents, which formally make up the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, had a retreat where we looked very seriously at two things really coming together. One of them was the fact that we were looking around and we knew that finances were never going to come back the way they had been, that there in fact was going to be a new normal, and we were going to try to get ahead of the game by really thinking creatively about what needed to happen in our colleges so we could continue to serve our communities as we have. The second one was the completion agenda. And whether you call it the president's completion agenda, or if you think it's Bill Gates' fault or Lumina's fault, because it's talked about everywhere, and once the words were mentioned, everybody was talking about it. So we had very serious discussions in that day-long retreat about what were the most important things to look at. And I'm going to tell you very briefly what they are, because I know you don't all sit on the cabinet at your college and you don't all work with the whole thing every day. And because we have never been creative enough to come up with another name, we called them the Big Ideas the first day, and we still call them the Big Ideas. We've gotten to sort of like it at this point. Big idea number 1 is about transforming developmental education. The primary leaders on implementing our work in that area are the Academic Affairs Affinity Group. And while Larry just gave me some credit for leading that initiative, I'm the president who works with and supports what the academic affairs officers across the state do in that affinity group. So I really want to thank all of the academic officers who are here as part of that. Big idea number 2, which I was responsible first before I got responsible for big idea number 1, was about K-12 alignment. And how do we make sure that students coming through the pipeline to us are better prepared for a smooth transition? While we don't normally talk about it that way, I believe one of the things that needs to surface in your summit today is that ESL has a very important part to play in both of those things. Because we know there's a lot of ESL going on in many of the K-12 schools, and indeed, some of the people we're moving into the colleges are coming with some degree of success or not success, already having been through ESL, and when they reach you, they're onto a new and different part of the pathway. When we were working on that, and the Chief Academic Affairs Officers work on developmental and K-12 every month, what became obvious when we planned our first Student Success Summit, talking about developmental education in math, developmental education in English, developmental education in reading. And at first, we tried to put ESL in their summit, and we determined after lengthy discussion that it really deserved its own summit, that you really needed to be talking to each other more, not trying to figure out where you fit with math and English, as much as really getting a handle on ESL. I can tell you across the state, in both of those categories, and we've done a lot of research, those academic officers and staff whom we have hired, like Lou Venturelli, have done a lot of research, and we know that 19 colleges across New Jersey are not doing things the same way. So part of our task is being sure that we really understand what benchmarks, what best practices from all of those methods exist, so we can wisely choose what to use, when to use it, where to do it, how to do it. So if any of you came afraid we were trying to make all of you do everything exactly the same way, that is not the agenda. The agenda is for all of you to help figure out what are the best practices, to try great new things, and to do it in collaboration, so at the end of the day, we think we have the best that we can have across the state of New Jersey. I'm just going to tell you a couple of the other big ideas because they cross over. Big idea number 3 is about the student success model. And this is not how to do your student success issues. This is about the statistics, the documents, the evidence of how well our students are succeeding. And we built the student success model in New Jersey with some comparison to what was going on in the voluntary framework for accountability, but we did not match it perfectly. We looked at achieving the dream, we looked at a lot of things, and we have your IR officers across the state working with Linda Lamb and really fine-tuning how this works. So New Jersey does have student success measures, and we're going to hope that your ESL success stories become college success stories as well. Big idea number 4, and this should be of interest to all of you, is about promoting development, professional development for our adjunct faculty. We use a lot of adjunct faculty from the finance side. We know we will continue to use them. We will probably be using more of them. So one of our task groups, I don't lead that one, thankfully, is developing plans about having some curriculum for adjunct faculty, having a system where we can share, identify adjunct faculties from other campuses when we're desperate and looking for somebody. But I know that a lot of the ESL is taught by adjuncts, so your voice in what development do they need will be an important one as well. Something you're not going to be involved in is the joint purchasing process, but we are collectively hiring a part-time executive director to get more savings for our colleges by doing joint purchasing. And skipping a couple of them, big idea number 8, which I'm sure you've heard about, is looking at the most popular courses, particularly Gen Ed, that are most often taken, and across the state, identifying what are the core elements, the core outcomes for those courses. So when our students are transferring to other institutions, we're in a position to say, they graduated from a community college, they took these courses here, we know that their learning outcomes will meet this standard. I'm here to tell you the presidents are not doing all of this work. Hundreds of people from each of the campuses are involved in the groups doing this work. But I will circle back to the fact that big ideas 1 and 2, improving developmental education, if we can't get our students started successfully, we certainly can't reach completion. So we are all about what you are about, which is helping your students learn enough that they can be successful learners and successful in the community. And we know that to get better in all of developmental, we have to improve the K-12 alignment. We're working on that with Park statewide, but good things are coming up. Presidents across the state have been the leaders of different ideas. I do want to introduce Dr. Joanne LaPerla Morales from Middlesex Community College, waving her hand at you. And someplace in the crowd is Dr. Steve Rose from Passaic. Thank you. I lost your face, but you're there. And if any other presidents came in, I'm sorry I didn't see you, but wave your hand now. Otherwise, it is my pleasure to introduce one of the great leaders among our chief academic officers who has really helped drive these agendas forward, Dwight Smith.
We welcome you to this most important summit about an area that I think is exciting for the state to consider ways in which we improve student success, and that is with regards to ESL. I admit I might be somewhat tired. I was at a conference on the Roadmap Project sponsored by the Association of American Colleges and Universities. It was in Miami, Florida, which I worked and had the privilege of working with Cynthia when she was there a few years ago. But in Miami, it's truly, English is the second language. And so there were a couple of institutions in this roadmap project. One is Queensboro, which they claim has the largest number of non-English speaking students. They have 140 languages represented at their institution. And they were also a roadmap institution is Hostas Community College, which is near them. It's in the Bronx. They have 120 languages represented in their student population. And that's something we're all confronting here in the state of New Jersey as well. And as you know, with ESL, and one of the discussions we had as academic officers in the Academic Affairs Affinity Group is the realization that ESL is not developmental education. And you know that you're dealing with students who might have deficiencies in language, like we deal with students who have deficiencies in perhaps reading, writing, and mathematics. But you're in ESL, you also have students who are very proficient in language. They just need assistance with English. So we felt it's very important that ESL be considered separately and be considered at a time where all the leaders in the state are together to think about ways in which we can improve student success. I do want to acknowledge my fellow colleagues on the AAG group, the other academic officers, and I just asked the academic officers if they would just please stand and be recognized, and I want to thank them for their discussions and leadership in developing the summit. So, thank you. In helping to prepare this summit and organize this summit, I want to acknowledge the staff of the New Jersey Council of County Colleges, Larry Nespoli, Jim Davey, Marcia Stolzman, Jake Farber, and I don't know if I missed someone from your staff. Would you please rise, because they've been very helpful in organizing this. Let's recognize them. Thanks. I think a leader in thinking about student success is Lou Venturelli, who certainly helps, but he is assuming a role in providing leadership in a student success center, which is new to the state, but I think will help us as we consider ways that we improve student success, because this is not going to be the one and only time we talk about ESL and talk about student success. We're going to need to continue this conversation because, as President Donahue indicated, there's other pieces of big ideas that need to be put together, and we're going to be monitoring whether or not through the student success model our efforts are successful, because we do need to see improvement in students progressing through our ESL programs, our developmental ed programs, and our programs overall, so that we do meet the completion agenda that is on the national and state level. I do want to acknowledge two academic officers who provided significant leadership to the issue of ESL. Maurice Lone, Union County College, and Eric Friedman from Hudson County Community College, the academic officers at those institutions. They put together the white paper that was shared with you that I think provided a nice summary of different approaches that are being used throughout the United States and are seeing positive results that many of you are already using, or perhaps ideas that we could consider for the state of New Jersey. They're also very helpful in identifying the two great speakers that we have here today that will provide, I think, an institutional and national perspective to the issue of improving student success in ESL. One of the interesting approaches to this summit that is a good idea, and it reminds us of why we're here and why we do what we do, was to identify a student who went through an ESL program in the state of New Jersey and get some idea through the student's eyes in life about what ESL has meant to her. And so if you allow me, I'm going to read the nomination from Professor Harry Pullman of Union County College. And Harry, you could just raise your hand, and we thank you. Howie? Lou, you didn't give me the right name. My apology, it's Howie. All right. Here's what he said. One candidate that we would like to recommend is Alexandra Zumba. You might recognize her name. She is a part-time lab technician for the chemistry department. She began our ESL program in 2003. She graduated with a chemistry degree at UCC, a GPA of, oh, I can't say GPA, can I? Is that all right if I tell them what your GPA is? All right. Don't want to get in trouble with federal law, was a 3.26, and went on to Montclair State University and got a degree in molecular biology and chemistry from Montclair State University. But she didn't stop there, and is currently pursuing a Master of Arts in Pharmaceutical Biochemistry. She is also a graduate assistant in the chemistry and biochemistry department at Montclair State University. Alexandra started in level 1, skipped level 3, and graduated from UCC in 2008. She provided an idea of what she's going to present in a conference call with the organizers of this summit. I think what you will hear frames very well why this is a very important summit, and also reminds us of the importance of what you do as faculty and as administrators at your colleges to help these students succeed and help them find the path that they would like to proceed. So Alexandra, please come forward. Thank you.
My name is Alexandra Zumba, and I am here today to share my story of how I began to learn English through the ESL program at Union County College and where the journey has taken me through today. Like so many others that have left their homes to come to find a life here in the United States, I came not knowing how to speak any English. To be honest, I was so excited to be coming to the United States that it did not cross my mind that learning a new language was going to be the biggest challenge I was going to face. However, I quickly realized that if I was going to reach the goals I had set for myself, then learning English will be the first step. My first real challenge with learning English came when I started working at a bakery where everyone only spoke English, and up to that point, English was virtually still unknown to me. I had taken English classes in high school. However, I grew up in a country where the primary language spoken is Spanish. There were not many opportunities for me to practice English with anyone. And when I got a job at the bakery, I was not able to communicate with other employees. At the time, my English vocabulary consisted of 3 words, and I only knew how to use them at certain times. There was a word hi, which I found I could use to greet people. The second one was thank you, and that is what I said to people whenever I was given anything. Finally, there was the word bye, which people shouted at each other when it was time to go home. And there I was, in a brand new home, and I only knew how to use 3 words of English. With the situation I found myself in, I again realized just how very important it was going to be to learn this new language. Moreover, I wanted to be able to communicate fluently with the people I was starting to know, especially my boss at the bakery. She is one of the nicest people I have ever met. She will always do her best to try to communicate with me with a few Spanish words that she knew, and I will respond with my limited English vocabulary. I will always remember that one time she offered me a ride home to Elizabeth. The ride home was very silent until we got to a traffic light where we needed to go straight to get to my house. By that point, I could understand more than I could speak, and I knew she was asking me for directions when we got to the intersection. I didn't have any idea what to say. Therefore, I only made a hand gesture, and then we were driving in that direction away from my house. I then just sat there without saying a word, thinking that she will eventually figure out we were going the wrong way. Eventually, we made it past a garage where school buses were kept. I again had no idea where I was, as I had only been in the United States for a short period of time. We finally found a person that was able to speak both English and Spanish, and I eventually made it home that night. By the time I got to the ride home was very silent until we got, Now my boss has become a good family friend, and we both laugh when we think about the one time that we drove in circles, trying to get me home that night. It is even funnier when we realize that the garage with the school buses was only 5 blocks away from my house. After working at the bakery for over a year, I decided to start taking English classes. I got some information about the ESL program at Union County College, and in order to start taking classes, the first step was to take a placement test. When I got the results, I was placed in level 1, and to tell you the truth, I thought that was a little unfair. In that time that I spent working at the bakery, I had not learned a lot of English, but I knew more than 3 words. It was not until years later that I was thankful for having had to start at level 1. At the time, I did not only know how to speak a little English, but I did not realize that my grammar was not the best. In the ESL program, I not only learned a new language, but I was exposed to many different cultures from all over the world. I have learned something from all these different cultural experiences, but most importantly, I made good friends from all over the world. I now have friends from Japan, China, Russia, South America, just to mention a few. The ESL program provided an environment where I was happy to go to. It felt like home. My first semester professor took the class on a field trip to the American Museum of Natural History, and that was a great experience for me. That one time with my ESL class was one of the reasons why I wanted to keep going, because I realized that there was so much to see and learn. By the time I got to level 4, I was more familiar with the language, and once again, our professor took the class on another field trip. This trip was to the Apollo Theater in Harlem, and we went on a tour that told us a little bit of history. This was another inspiration, because listening to the stories of how great people first started at the Apollo, and by being at a place where stars are born and legends are made, I could see the dreams do come true. And my dream was to keep studying and earn a degree. My experience at Union County College is something that I will not change for anything, because going to Union County College was a great life experience. I learned many lessons from people of all ages. I enjoyed being around people that knew what they wanted and were willing to put in the extra mile to go for it. It has always been inspiring to see people of older age so eager to learn, and I am glad that I had been exposed to such a broad range of people of all ages and cultures. Smart people from whom I learned about science and math, and people whose wisdom will help me throughout my life. I eventually finished the ESL program, and I continued with my schooling. My first class after ESL was a mathematics course for students whose first language was not English. Even though it was a non-credit course, I am glad to have taken the class because of the important terminology that will help me in future classes. This was also an important opportunity because I could practice my English with my classmates who were once again from all over the world. I then went on to earn an associate's degree in chemistry from Union County College, and I also had a chance to work as a peer tutor at an academic learning center. There I had an opportunity to help other students with what I had learned by tutoring mathematics and mainly ESL. I transferred to Montclair State University, from where I obtained a bachelor's in molecular biology with a minor in chemistry. Currently, I work as a laboratory technician for the chemistry department at Union County College. Moreover, I am pursuing a master's in pharmaceutical biochemistry, and as a teacher assistant working for the chemistry and biochemistry department at Montclair State University, I had an opportunity to work with students and experience some of the responsibilities that a professor has. Now, more than ever, I see the important role that educators play. By working as a teacher assistant while working on my master's degree, I can see that an educator can make a difference in a student's life. Today, I am very thankful for every professor I had. I mentioned before that I did not think it was fair that I had been placed in level 1, but thanks to that, I had been able to do well in my major by writing scientific papers and even have had the opportunity to present at research symposiums. I will never forget any of my professors, and I will always thank all of them because they helped me to get to where I am today. Thank you, all of you, for giving me the opportunity to give this little speech, which is a little longer than my first speech in English, when I was in level 2, which consisted in talking about one of the states. Such a speech consisted of no more than 10 sentences. Nonetheless, it was my first speech in English, and therefore something that I will always remember. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maris Lound from Union County College, and I am going to start by telling you about how we got to this point. We were asked by the President's Council to develop a white paper on ESL, and Dr. Donahue set us up nicely this morning by giving you the context for the big ideas and how this work is progressing. One of the first things, I worked with Dr. Friedman from Hudson, and one of the first things that we did was, it's one of the first things you do in higher education, is to create a committee. And we initially thought this should be a grassroots effort. So we reached out to the other academic officers and asked them to recommend individuals from their institutions who had expertise in this area and who would be willing to participate in the writing of the white paper. Mr. Poman chaired the subgroup that produced the white paper. You all received a copy of it. I will tell you that it took over a year to produce this effort. The academic officers sent us back numerous times for revisions and different thinking. And we faced a number of challenges that I think we didn't anticipate at the beginning, but which got resolved through this process, and I think produced a stronger end paper than perhaps would have been otherwise if we had moved a little quickly or a little faster. I'm going to quickly introduce the committee members, and I would ask that you stand if you're here. David Edwards, Middlesex County College, Nagar Farakish, Union County College, Gail Gibson, Essex County College, Howard Poman, Union County College, William Jang, Bergen County College, Patricia Ischel, Union County College, Richard Roy, Middlesex County College, Nancy Silvestro, Passaic County College, Richard Strada, Ocean County College, and Chris Wall, Hudson County Community College. These individuals worked really hard. They worked together. They worked across distance. They worked with some dissonance because, as I said before, we kept coming back and back over and over to them. So please help me thank them. English today is more than a second language. English today is a global language with global implications, and as our planet is shrinking, our language is becoming ever more important to the economic welfare and social prosperity of everyone on the planet. These are some statistics I pulled up. I think they're fascinating. English has official or special status in at least 75 countries with a total population of over 2 billion. English is spoken as a first language by about 375 million and as a second language by about 375 million speakers in the world. Speakers of English as a second language probably outnumber those who speak it as a first language. Around 750 million people are believed to speak English as a foreign language. 1 out of 4 of the world's population speaks English to some level of competence. Demand from the other 3/4 is increasing. At the year 2000, it was estimated that over 1 billion people were learning English. About 725,000 international students were enrolled in colleges and universities in 2011. At the very least, what this means for all of us sitting in this room is some degree of job security. There is no question but that those of us who are actively engaged in this discipline are at the forefront of moving the world's agenda. Dr. Donahue spoke very eloquently to the completion agenda. I know you're all familiar with it. This is 5 national organizations that have joined with AACC to really move the effort to get people to graduation. We have data that is just dispositive, indicating that you are better off with a college degree. And we are trying to move people through the system to graduation. For some of our students, this begins with ESL. I talked about the challenges that we faced earlier as a group and as a committee. And these were things that came up that we probably knew subliminally, but as they surfaced through our discussion, they became very directive in what was the final white paper. Each community college has a very different ESL population. I've given you 2 of the largest colleges. We were, Dr. Friedman reminded me yesterday, we were at one meeting where one individual, and I honestly didn't remember who it was, but said we have 7 ESL students. So as you can imagine, that is a huge difference between these 2 extremes in terms of how you would tailor programs, the resources that you would devote, and how you would manage ESL. Additionally, we found that colleges have different approaches to ESL education. In some instances, they were similar. In other instances, they were quite different. So as we crafted this paper, this was one of our challenges, to come up, and Dr. Friedman is going to talk about how we manage this dissonance, but we needed to come up with an approach that would bridge these 2 variables, the difference in the population and the differences in the way colleges approached ESL education. Additionally, in working with students, we had very different students in our ESL population. We have ESL students who really might not be interested in enrolling in a credit program. We have ESL students who want to enroll in a credit program and who need developmental education courses. And we also have ESL students who wish to enroll in a credit program who do not need developmental education. One of the concerns that was expressed over and over by the experts in ESL was, do not assume that every ESL student needs developmental education. We spent a lot of time talking about that. I came to understand that perhaps it's a bias that exists within the educational community that is simply not true. Coming back to the completion agenda, these are things that the country is looking to change. I am not sure how we're going to do it, how we're going to get there, but these are some sobering statistics. I mean, we all know that community colleges were created with programs at around 60 credits. Associate degree students today are taking an average of 79 credits. The baccalaureate sector, they're no better off. Their students average 136 and a half credits. I was talking recently to an individual from TCNJ. She's actually, I think, the acting provost. And she mentioned to me that they have moved every program in their portfolio to 120 credits. Now, I didn't look this up. I didn't research this myself, so I'm giving you this information on her word. But she's actually a nurse that I would trust with my life, so I felt pretty comfortable sharing this information with you. Students are taking much too much time to earn a degree. They should take 2 years. The full-time take an average of 3.8 years, part-time 5 years. Again, the baccalaureate sector is no better off. The full-time baccalaureate students take 4.7 years. That might be a little better than the associate's degree, but overall, we are not seeing students get to completion. I'm actually one of those people. I have 3 sons. They all took 5 years to earn a baccalaureate degree. I never thought twice about it. I paid the bill. I was grateful that they graduated at the end of the day. And actually, 2 of my sons were in 7 colleges before they finished a baccalaureate degree. I know. I didn't think about it at the time. Financial aid is impacting us. Big concerns, and the government is increasingly tighter in terms of their approach to financial aid. Financial aid is awarded on a semester basis, not a credit basis. They recently limited the semesters from 18 to 12. Additionally, DOE recently came out with new regulations for fall of 13. They're going to be requiring a shopping sheet, and this is going to be a sheet that's got to have a primary posting with default rates, completion rates, and the cost of the education in that institution. Customized verification has the potential to affect our ESL programs, because what they're asking for here is proof of high school completion. And they are going to be selecting students. Evidently, there's some sort of a process where they are going to be selecting students, and we will have to show proof of high school completion. And for some of our students who come from another country, this is possibly another barrier, and we are looking at moving these students into GED programs as one approach, but again, you still have the language issue. And they are also looking at unusual enrollment history. It appears, and I was just briefed on this recently, but it appears as though if you have been in 3 or more institutions, that the government will select individuals to review transcripts from those institutions, and if there are any Fs, students will have to justify the F to the financial aid officer. So all of that is part of the landscape that is precipitating a closer look at ESL. One of the issues, or another one of the issues that we have looked at in relation to ESL is this notion of stackable credentials. This is one of those buzzwords in higher education that seems to have gotten some traction. It certainly sounds very seductive, and noticing a lot of people are moving in the direction, which I think is a good direction, of trying to provide certificates at all levels, both credit and non-credit levels, so that students have some evidence of the skills and abilities that they have attained, hoping that it will get them entry-level jobs and provide a ladder for them to move through the workforce and ultimately to a college degree. What I have framed for you now leads us to the white paper and our action plan, and it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Eric Friedman.
It's an honor to be here this morning. See so many faces here, so many people I know. Oh, funny question to start with. What inspires me as I drive to work? I do drive to work every morning. Larry Nespoli just asked me if I take the train or drive. I do drive, and I drive with a significant cohort, to use a word from academics, a cohort driving into Manhattan, but I stop and get off at Jersey City. So it depends on the day of the week and how many people decide to go to Manhattan. It gets pretty interesting. There's so many things that give me a feeling of this is why I do the work that I do. And I know that you have those feelings too. Here are three answers to that question of what inspires me as I drive to work. Number one, this is a rendering of the new 117,000 square foot library at Hudson County Community College. It has a 35,000 square foot, two-story reading room at an urban college in the middle of a revitalizing city. The next slide is how it looks as I gazed out the window of the president's office this week. Why am I showing you the new library at Hudson? Libraries represent possibilities, and they represent the future. They are hallmarks of our democracy, as is the community college itself. When I visit the library on our campus, small as it is right now, I see students roaming the stacks, some of whom have had no free access to knowledge and libraries in their countries of origin. So I am inspired when I see them spending time just pulling books down or looking at electronic resources. Number two, students come to college, any college, and I was a graduate student not that long ago, full of emotion, and I brought all of my emotion to college with me, and certainly our students do. And students come with their aspirations, as you heard Alexandra speak. This life-changing business is serious stuff. For 1,900 of our credit site students at Hudson, ESL classes are their first challenge, and I see them embrace that challenge and move on towards their next goals. Thank you, Alexandra, for inspiring me this morning. And thirdly, as I looked through the links that were provided by the team members that made their way into the white paper, I found some things like this from Project ACE: stronger curricular connections, concurrent teaching of academic subject matter and second language skills. Persistence of ESL students in college is negatively impacted by structural barriers, such as programmatic isolation from other college disciplines. That phrase, when I read it, reminds me of something I teach in sociology about the old-style housing projects and how they alienate individuals away from the community. So these are big ideas, and the reason why I include this on my list of what really gets me excited and passionate about my work is that we can do this. We can create stronger curricular connections, us in this room and the faculty that we work with. We can teach concurrently. We can break down structural barriers. We can make these things happen. You are the leaders who can make these differences. So I'm excited about this work, and this is something, when I'm driving into work, I think about this. This next slide is a famous image. How many people see a duck? Show of hands. How many people see a rabbit? Okay. How many now see a rabbit where you saw only a duck? I'm seeing some hands. Good. This image is used to illustrate the notion of a gestalt shift, a paradigm shift, or the ability to see what couldn't be seen before. And once you've seen the duck or the rabbit, you'll never go back. Things have changed for you. You have new knowledge. I already have new knowledge. Thank you, Dr. Lone. I've already been transformed by some of those statistics. Another way to talk about what I'm talking about with the duck and the rabbit is the donut shop, or what philosophers call the phenomenological shift. Imagine you arrive as an incoming college student to a campus in a place you're not familiar with. You don't know where anything is. A friend sees you looking a little lost and asks you if you want to go out for the world's best coffee and donut. Must be New York, right? All those places with the sign, world's best coffee. You say, sure. Since you don't know the city, you watch very carefully. Okay, out the main door, down the street, turn left at the corner, and walk down 2 blocks. And you get there and wow, this is the best donut I have ever had. This is amazing. Unbelievable. How do they make donuts this good? This is great. Well, now you've had the phenomenological shift. Now you've undergone this change. You have new knowledge. You have something new in your knowledge base. We hope that today works like that for you. The good is the enemy of the best. A friend told me this once. You're doing good things. Things are okay. Well, some things could actually change, be better. Kaizen, the Japanese call it, continual improvement. In our case, as Dr. Lone was intimating, the public demands more. This is the reality. The public wants more out of our graduation rates and student success. We're all doing good things, but we have the opportunity to do better working together. We all have models that we use, reigning paradigms that we use to see the world. They influence us, they shape us, we take them for granted. We see ducks. Real briefly, I just want to introduce you to a very seminal article, the theoretical basis for the toolkit approach that you find at the heart of our white paper, and that enabled us to move forward over the course of a difficult year, despite resistance, despite all kinds of issues. Ann Swidler, a sociologist and the co-author of a famous book you might remember, Habits of the Heart, wrote a very influential article in 1986 entitled Culture in Action. Take a look at the first sentence of that article. Culture influences action, not by providing the ultimate values towards which action is oriented, but by shaping a repertoire or toolkit of habits, skills, and styles from which people construct strategies of action. If you think about Swidler's first sentence, and if you read the longer paper, I believe you'll find a few things that she is implying about culture that make direct sense in the context of what we're doing here today and the idea of an ESL toolkit. First of all, she offers her idea as, quotes, an alternative analysis of culture. She provides an image of a toolkit of symbols, stories, rituals, worldviews that people can use in what she calls varying configurations to solve different kinds of problems. Second, she focuses on strategies of action or ways of ordering our action. Third, she sees culture's significance not in defining ends of action, but in providing components that are used to construct strategies of action. Essentially, in her alternative model to understanding culture, people choose from various available forms as opposed to the older model in which culture was understood as values that shape actors or individuals. I don't have time today to discuss the inadequacies of the former reigning cultural values approach, but suffice it to say that the central tenet of that argument was that culture shapes people's action by defining what people want. As Swidler writes, what people want is of little help in explaining their action. So let's stay with the ESL toolkit. 19 colleges, decentralized, as Larry Nespoli calls it, collaborative coordination. That's why we're here today. The white paper that you've received, you probably have in your folders. It's available online. The white paper is a resource and it's a foundation stone for action. This is not the end today. This is the beginning of a long conversation and a lot of work. The toolkit can and should organize action to reach goals. We can select from a variety of tools, and we're going to hear from some experts today. Importantly, we choose customized courses of action for our own campuses and our own community. The course of action should fit to your college's particular set of circumstances, not to mine. Importantly, there's no single path to success. The action plan on page 16 of the white paper are recommendations for transforming ESL education. Transforming ESL education. These are the long-term goals. We invite you, we encourage you to consider elements of action from the action plan when you go into group sessions later on today. We want you to discuss customized strategies to address action steps. So that's our plan. Take a look at the action plan in the group sessions. First, however, we have two very significant keynote speeches to help you fill your toolkits and to help you see some things you may not have seen before. Thank you. Dr. Lone.